shouting all about love. Well, they cheated you like a dog, and you were the one who had made it so clear all those years ago. Talking all about how to give, they don't act with much honesty. But you went the way to the truth when you say all you need is love. Baby, with good or bad, I always looked up to you. Now we're left cold inside by someone, the devil's best friend, someone who abandoned it all. We're living in a bad dream. They've forgotten all about mankind, and you were the one they backed up to the wall all those years ago. You were the one who imagined it all those years ago. All those years ago. All those years ago. Deep in the darkest night, I send out a prayer to you. Now in the world of light, where the spirit realizes all else that we despise, they've forgotten all about God. It's the only reason we exist. Yet you were the one that they said was so weird all those years ago. You said it all, but our man he had ears all those years ago. You had control of our smiles and our tears all those years ago. All those years ago. All those years ago. All those years ago.
Let me introduce to you the one and only John Lennon. You just come in here and shout things talking about the Beatles.
What's that?
Where are they? Anyway, we remember now, I remember this.
I'll try.
I remember this. Now, we made a record and John wrote a song which was quite similar. We did it as an album track and avoided making it into the next single, and in fact he gave it to some people who nobody had ever heard of, which was There's a Place. Remember? There's a Place.
We gave that away.
Da, da, da. Yeah, but somebody else did it as a single. We just put it on the album, but it was like the one before with the mouth organ and all the bit.
A bit about when you change, you know. They attacked the Stones, who just made one of the greatest albums they ever made, and Mick singing like a beauty and saying it's the same old stuff. It isn't the same old stuff, it's great Stones. And if you do change it, then you're attacked for changing it, right? Yeah. And all the audiences have been digging all his shows, because I've got good spies, and critics don't like it because he changed it. If he'd done the same, he would have been attacked for not changing it.
There's lots that I really thought were pretty good, and the response which I thought were sensational. To try and put them into, quickly to say which ones I really enjoyed. I enjoyed things like Strawberry Fields. I enjoyed the ones which were inventive, which were new. You know, like, I enjoyed Norwegian Wood because I felt where it was coming from. I remember, you know, when I was alongside John or Paul as they were writing things, occasionally they might have said a line or a word, like my mother would say a line or a word which I'd use. But that, you know, I can think of a million times when I wrote a few lines or verses to Eleanor Rigby or something else too. They didn't really help me that much. John helped me in as much as he said, he gave me a tip, which wasn't really a tip. He was just being, you know, observant. And that is that once you get in the motion of starting it, it's handy to try and finish it, complete it. I remember the day when John did an interview with a certain magazine and said certain things, and then I remember the day when he disagreed with what he'd said, but the man who interviewed him denied him the right to change his mind, and even though it was 2.5 years later, still went ahead and published something which John said he no longer agreed with himself on, which means the dream was over, yet certain people wouldn't allow him to have his dream over. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
In other words, imagine if somebody, or you accidentally bang your head and you shout, ow. That's the end of it. Right? I mean, it doesn't go on for the next 5 years, right? And we all do that.
We've been in parties where it's full of people who have got the shiniest shoes or the biggest heels or the funniest glasses or the biggest hat. Now, I can't get on with that scene. I just met David Bowie, who they call Bowie in America, David Bowie, who I know Ringo also thinks is great.
So do I.
Okay, John does too. Now, you know, I don't have any concept of whether he's great or not great, but I met him in Memphis, and he was in the shower room with the band just before we went on to the second show. I had to pull John's glasses up and say, let's have a look. Let's see where you're at. David Bowie, I said these are the very words, and I hope he wasn't offended by it, because all I really meant was what I said, which was I pulled his hat up from over his eyes and said, hi man, how are you? You know, nice to meet you. Pulled his hat off his eyes and said, you know, do you mind if I have a look at you to see what you are? Because I've only ever seen those dopey pictures of you. I mean, every picture I've ever seen of David Bowie or Elton John, they just looked stupid to me.
I thought they looked great.
Well, I think he looks dopey. I want to see, you know, I want to see who the person is.
First of all, it's immigration for me, George, and Paul. Right? So every time George or Paul want to come here, they have to ask permission 18 months in advance.
Well,
I'm a poet.
hang on, okay. Let's hear John's verse.
Possible for more than one or two to get in at the same time. The most that were ever here were me, Paul, and who was the other one? Ringo. And a lot of children. Yeah, Bert didn't come. Right? So just it's impossible for us to even get in a room together. So the only way we talk is either over the phone or through some paper.
If you're in the market for a color TV...